It's weird and gross, I know, but pregnancy is weird and gross. Just get over it. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new here, I would love it if you would subscribe and follow along in my German adventures. So today's video is a little different from some of my other videos. I wanted to talk about my pregnancy, but something very specific about my pregnancy. Zeus? A year ago this week, I was 35 weeks pregnant. It had been a very long couple of weeks at this point because my husband had been out of town on a business trip. And then right before he got home from his conference, I got sick. The following week, he got really sick, so I lost a week taking care of him. Flashback to, now the first full week of February. So it's Tuesday night, and I noticed that my hands are getting really itchy, the palms of my hands specifically. I flashed back to this post I had seen on Facebook about 2 years prior when a friend of mine was pregnant, and she had posted about this condition in pregnancy, that the main symptom is like a really deep, severe itchiness on the hands and feet. And I just remember thinking, man, that is a random symptom. That's so weird. When I realized at 35 weeks and 2 days pregnant that my hands were feeling really itchy, I went, oh crap, I read about this. So I spent the night kind of looking into this condition. So I suspect that I have ICP. ICP does not mean, in this case, intracranial pressure, nor does it mean the insane clown posse. It's Intrahepatic Cholestasis of Pregnancy, and what that is a collection of liver disorders that result in a buildup of bile in the bloodstream. Basically, your body can't filter the bile out of the liver properly, and it builds up in the bloodstream and can be very dangerous to the health of your placenta and therefore the health of your baby. So if you have severe itching on your hands and your feet, or if you just have severe itching that doesn't come with a rash, definitely call your doctor right away. So that's what I did the next morning. I was still feeling the symptoms. I called my doctor and described my symptoms to the nurse practitioner. And the nurse practitioner comes back on the phone and says the doctor wants to see me right away. So yeah, I go to the doctor's office, we talk about my symptoms, we talk about what it can be, and she was actually very familiar with cholestasis, which was reassuring. And they took some blood, did an ultrasound just to check on the baby. They did, I think that was one of the first times I had done a non-stress test. So fast forward 2 days to Friday morning, I was told to call them for my results, and so my husband stayed home with me just in case, So I called in the morning, and they said, we need you to come down here today, pick up your results, and bring them to the hospital. You don't have to do it right this second, but you do have to do this today. So on the one hand now, I'm feeling really anxious because I'm thinking, oh crap, I have this thing. But on the other hand, I was feeling really reassured that they were taking me seriously. So my husband and I go to the office. We get my results and we walk out of the doctor's office saying, okay, well now where do we go? Because the doctor's office told us, go to whichever hospital you've chosen to deliver. Hospitals and OBs and things work really differently here. You have an OB for prenatal care, and then you choose whatever hospital you want to deliver at, and you work with their staff. I'll go into it in more detail in a future video. And we had been looking at hospitals for a couple of weeks at that point. We had gone to all of the info sessions, but we hadn't chosen one. We were leaning towards one, but then when I got this diagnosis, or this suspected diagnosis, we had to change our priorities a little bit. At that point, I thought it made more sense to play it safe and choose one of the hospitals with a Kinderklinik or, a NICU, just in case. So we decided to go to the University Hospital in Mainz, the Uniclinic in Mainz, and just to have them follow up on the testing. We hadn't decided whether or not we were going to definitely deliver there, but we wanted to go there just in case I needed to be induced that day, because at that point it was a possibility. I was already, 35 and a half weeks, and with this condition, delivery as early as 34 weeks can be indicated. So we go to the hospital and, check in, talk to a couple of the midwives, sit around for about 2 hours, and then a doctor came to do an ultrasound, check on me and everything like that. And after about 2 hours of waiting, doctor comes over and starts to talk to us and says, we want to admit you into the hospital so we can do the blood work to confirm whether or not this is cholestasis. But it's Friday, there's no point in admitting you today because the lab is closed on the weekends, because this is Germany and that's just how it works. So they told me, go home, enjoy your weekend, try to relax, come back on Sunday afternoon because we want to do some blood work on Monday that requires you to fast. So come in on Sunday, we'll admit you and do all this stuff. And I was really, really happy that they let me go home because my baby shower was the next day. And I really didn't want to have to cancel on everyone, like literally the night before. I would have felt like a total jerk, which is ridiculous, but that's just how my brain works. So I go to my baby shower, have a great time, and I was really happy about that. And then Sunday comes and we go back to the hospital and I'm admitted. And so, again, we get into the kind of pre-admission before they assign me into a room. And I'm sitting there waiting again for 2 hours. So they finally get me in. The next morning we go through a lot of blood work, and after a couple of days of monitoring, like twice daily non-stress tests, a lot of vitals and all that stuff, Wednesday comes around. They've gotten the results of my bile acids test. So the doctor comes in to see me and she says, your levels are really low. There's no need for you to deliver right now. So now I have my diagnosis, and the treatment is twofold. One, you take ursodiol, which helps to reduce the bile acids in your blood and therefore protect your baby from the effect of that. And the second part of treatment is delivering early, typically between 36 and 38 weeks. And at this point, I am 36 weeks. I think my bile acids were at approximately a 12. Anything above a 10 is diagnosable. So it was a mild case. And she said, you can go home as long as you can see your doctor and they can do a non-stress test, because they wanted me to have non-stress tests at minimum every 3 days at this point. Luckily, I had just a regular scheduled appointment with my OB, I think that Thursday or Friday, so they let me go home, which was great because I also had plans that weekend to go to my birthing class. So they told me, go to your doctor, get the non-stress test, relax over the weekend, and then come in on Monday morning so we can readmit you and run these tests again. The weekend comes, we go to our birthing class, 2 days, 8-hour classes. Saturday comes and goes, Sunday comes, and after lunch I start feeling really sick. Making it through the second half of that class day was really, really hard. I was just feeling progressively more and more nauseous. And the woman who was teaching the class said to me, if you get sick tonight, if you physically get sick, go to the hospital immediately. My husband and I go out to our car, and I get sick. My husband says, all right, we're going. We are going to the hospital. And I don't think I have ever seen him drive so fast down the Autobahn in the 4 years that we've been here. So we get there, and we're like, yeah, we're supposed to be here tomorrow, but I got sick. And they're like, okay. And they admit me in that night. Go through the tests again, just like the week before. And, my bile acids come back again, and now a new doctor. I think this is the third doctor I've seen through this process. She comes in and she says, your levels are still really low. Because it's so mild, because of some research that's been done recently, I think you can go to term and be fine. But everything I had read in my research and through the ICP Cares website and the various research papers I had read, across the board, the recommendation is delivery no later than 38 weeks. So, the doctor comes back in to discharge me from the hospital, send me home again, and told me, you don't have to come back, you can just wait until you're done. And she said, your mental state and your stress level are also really important. It's not just about your baby, but I also want to make sure that you're comfortable. So she said she was, I'm willing to do the induction, I'm willing to induce you, but can you wait until 38 weeks? And since the guidelines did say 36 to 38, I said, okay, so she said, come back on Sunday, because the following Sunday, again, I was 38 weeks, and she said, we'll see where we're at that day. We'll see how things look. So she kind of left it still gray. In my head, I had already decided I am being induced. My body was ready to do it, and in my mind, there was absolutely no question. I was absolutely getting induced on that day. At this point, we had basically lost 3+ weeks of baby prep. 2 months before that, I thought, oh, we've got plenty of time. I'm not due until the middle of March. And so in January, I was like, I got 2 months left. I did not have 2 months left. So we were just trying to get as much done in those last few days as we possibly could, knowing that the next time I went into the hospital, more likely than not, we were coming home with a baby. So that was fun. So the weekend comes around and we say, okay, we're just going to relax, enjoy this weekend. It's probably our last weekend as a child-free couple, and let's just hang out. So Saturday night, something feels like, I don't know, it felt weird that day. And around 9 o'clock that night, I suspect that I am leaking amniotic fluid. There was no real reason for me to suspect that I was leaking, just besides something that my OB had said early on in the process about the smell. TMI, I know, but the only thing I had to go on was the smell. It's weird and gross, I know, but pregnancy is weird and gross. Just get over it. So I tell my husband, yeah. So he looks up some stuff and says, well, this says if you are leaking fluid, if you are leaking, then, lay down and you'll feel more. And that didn't happen. So I said, I'm sure it's fine. Let's just take this last opportunity for a full night's sleep and we'll just have them check in the morning. So I go to the hospital the next day as planned. And they're doing kind of the pre-check-in exams and everything. And I mentioned to the midwife on duty, I say, yeah, I think I'm leaking fluid. And she examines me and she says, no, I don't think so, but we'll test you. We'll see. And so she tests me and says, yeah, it came back positive, but this test often comes back positive, false positive sometimes. So we'll do this other test, but I don't think you are. And then the second test comes back. She's like, oh yeah, so you are? When did you notice this starting? And I tell her it was about 9 o'clock last night. And at this point, I think it's about 9 or 10 in the morning. And she says, well, it's been more than 12 hours, so we need to induce you because there's a risk of infection. So after all of this stress and all of this worry about the ICP induction, I ended up getting induced for a completely different reason. And so that's where I'm going to leave off the story for now. My labor and delivery story can be another video in the future because this one's already way too long. Anyway, that is it for this video. Stay tuned next week. You probably can't tell because of the lighting in here, but I'm wearing way too much makeup because tonight I'm actually going out for the first night of Fastnacht. And so that's what next week's video is going to be about. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be very different from this one, much happier and more exciting video. So anyways, if you liked this extremely long video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye.